Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
No, it's the French Revolution.
This too soon. Welcome to the French Revolution.
Here we have Marie Antoinette demonstrating deficit spending, one of the causes of the French Revolution. In 1 year, she lost the equivalent of $1.5 million.
Although my country is swamped in debt, I'm gonna bet it all. I raise you €1 million!
One could argue that this was a step towards democracy because the financial crisis eventually led to the demise of their monarchy with the disdain of the people.
In 1789, farmers experienced poor harvests due to horrible weather conditions and infertile land. Thus, the price of bread, the mainstream in diets back then, rose drastically.
This poor harvest.
It's 1789.
I can't afford for my kids.
My daughter wants Nike Elites. No crops!
Once again, one could argue that this was a step towards democracy because it drew out the anger of the people in their miserable lives in which they wanted change in the old regime.
On July 14, 1789, members of the Third Estate stormed the Bastille, a prison for political prisoners, in search for gunpowder. This was the symbolic beginning of the revolution and showed other countries that France was capable of a revolution. Even though it pushed the revolution forward, it was not a step towards democracy because it turned the people to violence, which prevented order, inhibition, and ideals for goals.
This corrupt French government. I can't take it anymore. That Bastille stands for oppression. Let's fight for what's ours.
The king's financial crisis was prolonged until he had almost no money left, when he attempted to tax the nobles in hope of regaining his wealth. The nobles objected and swindled the king into calling the first meeting of the estates in 175 years. This was a step towards democracy because it was the official start of the French Revolution, which was a huge leap towards democracy.
Hello, I'm the First Estate. I'm the rich clergyman and priest.
Hi, I'm the Second Estate. I consist of nobles.
Hi, I'm the Third Estate, and I am the poorest.
So how do we feel about the Third Estate gaining more power in the government?
Raise your hand if you agree.
Raise your hand if you disagree.
2 against 1.
We win.
I think we know who won. Okay, what about property issues? Who thinks the Third Estate should gain more? If you disagree, 2 against 1. I think we know who won.
And who feels that the Third Estate should get more money? Raise your hand if you agree. Raise
Disagree?
Your hand if you agree. Disagree?
This is unfair. It's always 2 against 1. I never have a shot to win. This is injustice.
It's actually good.
On June 20th, 1789, the National Assembly met up to write the Constitution, but were locked out of their meeting room. They took control of one of the royal tennis courts and held their meeting there instead, and pledged to drop the French Constitution of 1791. This was a step towards democracy because it limited the power of the monarchy and gave more power to the Third Estate.
We, the people of the National Assembly,
The Third Estate.
and some of the Second Estate, propose to write a new constitution for France.
Women marched to Versailles, the royal family's palace. They revolted because they were unable to provide for their family due to high taxes on bread and food. They took control over the palace with brute force. They also made the king and queen promise to give them food and forced them to Paris. This was a step towards democracy because it represented how the king was no longer above law, and it was the beginning of the end of the absolute monarchy. Man, this French government, I can't provide bread for my family. How are they supposed to survive?
We want bread.
We want bread!
We want bread! We want bread! We want bread! We want bread!
We want bread.
The Reign of Terror began when Robespierre took control of France and established the Committee of Public Safety, COPS. Robespierre killed anyone who wasn't as radical as he was, so everyone was in danger of being beheaded by the guillotine. If anyone said or did anything against the revolution, they were accused of the treason and beheaded without a trial. They used fear and murder to create a sense of order in France. The National Convention replaced the Legislative Assembly and made France a republic. This was not a step towards democracy because an absolute dictator took over the government and gave the people no say.
I am Maximilian Robespierre, and if you don't believe my ideas, off with your head!
As the Directory was losing control of the awful political situation in France, Napoleon was urged by his friends to seize control of the government. He took action by taking the title First Consul, in what was called his coup d'etat, or a sunrise to power. The people of France admired and supported Napoleon due to his military successes. Napoleon organized a plebiscite to approve a new constitution. The people of France were desperate for a strong leader and voted overwhelmingly in favor of the constitution. Although Napoleon had no real competition for First Consul, he wanted to gain the people's support and not make himself sound like a dictator. This plebiscite gave Napoleon all of the power as First Consul. He set up lycées, which were government-run schools where graduates received high positions in government, and a Concordat, which recognized again of the church's influence on people in society, and his most proud accomplishment, the Napoleonic Code, which gave France a uniform set of laws and eliminated many injustices. In 1804, Napoleon decided to declare himself Emperor of France. This was not a step towards democracy, but because again another powerful figurehead took over and gave the people no say.
I, enemy of France, pull the thread to France.
I'm Napoleon. I love France. Ha ha! He's dead. I will take power.
On June 24th, 1812, Napoleon began his invasion of Russia. One of Napoleon's greatest weaknesses was his unwillingness to accept defeat and his great greed for power. The Russians used a scorched earth policy to destroy the army of Napoleon. Napoleon formed a small army of untrained citizens and fought the Battle of Leipzig, but when he lost, he was abdicated and sent to the remote islands of Elba. He came to France and reclaimed the throne from King Louis XVIII and kept power for about 100 days. During this time, he gained popularity in France, but gained many enemies in other European countries. He lost the Battle of Waterloo and was sent to an even more remote island, St. Helena, where he spent the rest of his life. This is a step towards democracy because the people got rid of the absolute power and started to learn for themselves.
Napoleon, how could you invade Russia?
I don't know. I'm so power hungry. They used the scorched earth policy. They even burned their own towns. It's not my fault my people got sick and died.
And the battle that you lost at Leipzig?
It was-
You know what? We're banishing you to St. Helena.
No!
You're coming with us.
No!
Many countries in Europe wanted to greatly establish long-lasting peace and stability on the continent following Napoleon's defeat. Their goal was a new European order. A series of meetings that took place in Vienna, known as the Congress of Vienna, were a series of meetings from representatives of these great countries: Russia, Prussia, Austria, Great Britain, and France. The former Minister of Austria, Clemens von Metternich, was by far the most influential representative there. The Congress of Vienna had three specific goals. Those three goals were to prevent future French aggression, establish a balance of power, and restore Europe's royal families back to their thrones. The countries invested status quo into keeping Europe at peace. Metternich devised a series of alliances called the Concert of Europe, which ensured that nations would help one another if any revolutions broke out. This was not a step towards democracy because the governments turned back to what they were before the French Revolution, and the legitimate leaders came back to power.
Britain. I am Austria.
I'm Prussia.
And I am Russia.
Hey, where's France?
Oh, I think he went to the bathroom.
Oh, okay, thanks.
And we're the Congress of Vienna. We are here to establish three goals. One, to restore royal families back to their thrones.
Also known as legitimacy.
To restore balance of power.
And to protect against future French aggression.
And I, Clemens von Metternich, will establish the Concert of Europe to make nations help nations when in need.
Before the French Revolution, the old regime was a corrupt system that inspired a revolution led by the Third Estate. This eventually led to the meeting of the States General, in which the Third Estate broke apart from the First and Second Estates and declared themselves the National Assembly. They vowed to write a new constitution in the Tennis Court Oath. The people of the Third Estate formed a mob and stormed the prison in search of gunpowder. Later, a mob consisting of enraged women who could not provide food for their families stormed the Versailles and forced the king and queen to come back with them to Paris. In this chaos, the radical Robespierre found himself in power and started a violent period called the Reign of Terror. After the Reign of Terror, people were sick of the radical way, so they overcorrected and moved to the conservative side of the spectrum to a directory. A great military conqueror, Napoleon Bonaparte, conquered France and almost all of Europe. He set a great economic system and improved the lives of the peasants. However, he met his demise when he tried to invade Russia, but the invasion was a failure and most of his army was destroyed. He lost every battle after that and was banished to the small island of St. Helena, where he died of stomach tumor. After Napoleon, the five great powers of Europe joined together and formed the Congress of Vienna. They successfully kept Europe in peace for almost 100 years.